Hey there guys, what's going on? Today we're back with a little bit of a different one here today. With the latest update, we did see huge changes to the game. We saw a load of different balance changes and we'll be taking a look at all of them in good time, but we're here today to talk about a brand new sniper rifle that did get added to Modern Warfare, the Rytec AMR anti-material rifle, and this thing is an absolute beast. It's complete with explosive or thermite rounds, which is absolutely hilarious, but to unlock this bad boy you do need to complete a challenge, which sees you having to get 3 quickscoping kills in 15 different games. Now, some of you may be wondering, what the heck is that? Well, to put it very basically, it's just using your sniper rifle, but quickly. Before we do get into our tips here to help you unlock this challenge, let's try and get this to 25 likes. The support from you guys has continued to be absolutely fantastic recently. We are smashing out these sub goals. We're almost at 2,050 subs, which is pretty wild. So make sure you do hit that subscribe button with those notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming class setups with the balance changes. Right, quickscoping, let's talk about it. Okay, so you can probably tell by my gameplay in the background that I'm not the best at quickscoping. I'm basically at the level where I will hit some absolutely insane, like dumb shots, and then I'll miss a very simple shot just straight in front of me. But quickscoping is essentially making your hipfire spread, those little icons on your screen for your crosshair, you want them to be as small as possible. Aiming down sight and then quickly shooting should typically fire a pretty straight shot most of the time, if you did time it correctly. You'll want to be firing as soon as your scope is up. It can be a little bit sooner, but you do run the risk of missing. Definitely need to get the sight up first. It doesn't necessarily have to be all the way up with the crosshairs lined up and you see through the scope and everything. Black scoping did used to be a thing back in the day where you only needed to see the black of the scope. It was a little bit weird animation. Pull that sight up and shoot. Anyway, we're after 3 quickscoping kills in 15 different games, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually pretty easy once you do get the technique down. I'm not 100% sure of the exact timing in which you can pull up your sight and then still get credit for the quickscoping kill. Like, I'm not sure if it can be like for a second you have the sight up or straight away. But I think you want to get those kills as fast as possible after you do pull up your scope. Timing of the shot can be something that's a little bit tricky, and it really only comes down to you practicing to find out when exactly you can fire when you do pull up those sights. So to help you with this, you want to set up your class for the maximum amount of aim down sight speed with your snipers that you can get. This particular Kar 98 class setup will do the job for you with all of the aim down sight speed attachments. We've got the tack laser, the sniper scope, the sport comb, the stipple grip tape, and of course the focus perk. Essentially, this does give us the greatest chance to get those sights up quickly and secure the kill. But this kind of setup will also work for the HDR, the AX50, and some of the other marksman rifles apparently. Like, I'm sure you can do this challenge with the MK2 carbine. Anyway, now that we do have our class sorted, let's take a look at some actual tips for quickscoping. Now, in my expert, yet not really expert opinion, quickscoping is all about 3 things: crosshair placement, reactions, and execution. Starting with crosshair placement, we have talked about this on the channel before, but for a refresher course, you want to be putting your crosshair where you think an enemy is going to be. You pretty much got to expect that there will be an enemy around every corner, so by aiming close to the corner, not directly at the corner, but just a little bit away from it, because when they peek out from the wall, they're going to be a little bit separated from it, so you do have to sort of adjust for that movement. It'll allow you to hit a pretty easy shot if someone is there. If not, you move past and then you aim at the next most likely spot the enemy will be. By putting your crosshair where you think an enemy will be, you give yourself the most chance of hitting that shot. Even if you do have to adjust a little bit, you should be able to hit it pretty easily. You then of course have to actually hit the shot, but we'll talk about that in a second. This is also why it's not a great idea to be sprinting around everywhere when you are trying to quickscope. You can definitely run if you're pretty confident that an enemy won't peek out from the door in front of you, but when you are going around corners, you'll probably just want to keep those sights up at upper body or head level to give yourself the best chance to land that shot, and probably walk as well. It's also important that you aren't sprinting around too much so you can actually hear people and sort of hear footsteps and where enemies are going to come from, because that's a very important step in order towards getting that sort of crosshair placement right, is knowing where people are. Also, how high you aim is also pretty important. Basically, you've got to be used to aiming at that upper chest or head level. This isn't just a quickscoping tip, but more of an overall one. The more times you aim at that head to chest level, the more likely you are to get that kill, because you do more damage typically in those particular areas. So once again, aiming in the right spots will give you the best chance of hitting the shot. So take this as an example. You've aimed at head level and are ready for someone to come around the corner, but when they peek out, they crouch. What do you do from there? Well, then you've got to hit a flick. A flick shot is an adjustment made to the shot by flicking your mouse or your thumbstick quickly in the direction of the enemy. I'm not the best at this, I'll happily admit that. Flicking onto people is super tough sometimes, as you've got to account for their movements and their animations while quickly aiming at a different spot. Most of the time, you'll pretty much just flick in the directions and you'll either hit or miss. Like, it's mostly just down to practice and sort of getting that timing right, how far actually you have to move, depends on how far they are away, and so on. There's a lot of variables that do go into it, but it's mostly just practice a lot of the time. You can only really get better at this with practice. Practicing quickscoping is pretty important. You can't just go from zero to being auditioning for phase just by throwing on a sniper rifle with the right attachments. Reading animations is pretty interesting in online shooters. People typically can't change their directions too quickly once they've made an input. So as I said, for example, you can't really control how far you slide once you do it. You basically hit the button and you'll go a mostly set distance. If you learn and practice hitting the shots on those animations, like you'll know the set distance for how far he's going to slide, you can adjust there and then hit the shot. It's basically just practice. You'll get better doing that. But again, like I said, this really does come down to just practicing hitting shots. You can do this in any game mode, even against bots. If you're just looking to warm up, like have a bit of a practice, you can pull up the bot games. Just practice getting those sights up, or even deliberately putting your sight in the wrong spot and then flipping over to the enemy. Practice, practice, practice is very, very important here. And it's probably the most important yet most annoying tip in this video. It's not good to come to a video and just be like, you just got to get better, bro. Also, I figure I should put this in somewhere. Basically, when I'm trying to get those shots, like really hit those shots, I stop moving completely. The more you're moving, the more you have to adjust for various changes in the actual aim that you're trying to hit. So if you stop moving once you're about to hit a shot, it should be pretty easy most of the time to be consistent and get those sights exactly where you want them to be. Execution just comes down to practice, plain and simple, which is a little bit unfortunate for those of you who are just looking for some hot tips. The more you play trying to quickscope, whether that be against bots or real people, the better you'll get. Unfortunately, there isn't really much way around this. You can have all the attachments in the world, but they can't really help you when you're just trying to hit that shot. You'll want to be combining good crosshair placement, aiming in the right spots, or at least where you think the enemies are going to come from, flicks, quickly moving your crosshair to adjust for movement or reacting to something quickly that just appeared in a different direction, and patience. Footsteps are very, very important in this game. Like, being able to hear where enemies are coming from is such a huge advantage on people. I mean, you can't typically rely on it a lot of the time because dead silence does exist, but if you do see those people coming around the corner, or you hear them rather, you want to pre-fire or pre-aim that particular spot, wait for them to walk through the door, hit the shot very, very easily. I see a lot of people just sprinting around with their snipers. You'll mostly want to be walking or a sprint when no one is around. I think of it like this: if I'm consistent in my movements and I react the same way pretty much every time to how I'm moving, then the only thing I really have to adjust for is my enemy's movement. You want to take out as many variables as possible, like you sprinting around in or aiming in weird spots. If you are practicing and quickscoping correctly, the only thing you really have to do is aim and hit the shot. And this comes back to the point I made earlier about me stopping when I'm trying to hit the shot. So I'll walk out into an area and then stop and then try and hit the shot. Gives me a better chance to sort of aim, focus, and sort of hit that shot, try and get easily, rather than sort of have to counteract my movements, their movements, and then sort of adjust if they move slightly and so on. It just gets messy if you are trying too hard and sprinting around, moving too quickly. Another thing, you'll sometimes get way more time than you realize. If people aren't looking at you, you can typically take a second to really line up that shot and make sure you hit it, because once you fire, the enemy will probably react in some way. They'll either crouch, lay down, run, or turn and shoot at you. Most of the time, you're only going to have one shot, and that's what makes quickscoping so rewarding yet so frustrating. Sometimes you're centimeters away from getting a kill, and other times you get completely outgunned and you'll want to snap your controller in half. The more time you spend practicing, the more consistent you'll get, and the better quickscoping will feel. But man, sometimes you just got to go for those dumb shots. Like, if you just try and hit a shot, you're more likely to hit it than if you don't shoot it at all. Sometimes you won't even hit the shot at all, but sometimes you get lucky. But being able to drop someone immediately is so fun, and that's why the Kar98K and the MK2 carbine are some of my favorite weapons in the game, because they're so rewarding yet so punishing if you miss. Something that's probably more important than people realize: don't be afraid to take a break. If you aren't hitting those shots, it's often not worth it to push through and just keep practicing. Sometimes you just need to take a break and switch to another gun, or just put the game down and clear your head. Let your mind reset. Occasionally I'll find myself working on something so hard and it just won't happen. Like, you'll be sweating hours and hours of practice and it just won't happen for you. Sometimes you take a break and you'll come back and you'll hit it on the very first try. Quickscoping is hard and can be super frustrating, but it's also super rewarding, so don't be afraid to take a break from it every once in a while. Of course, the more you practice, the better you will get, but if you're not in a good place, like you're tilted or something like that, I mean, you're going to be missing those shots anyway, and that practice really won't be worth too much. So to summarize here, quickscoping takes practice. It's an incredibly fun, rewarding, yet challenging playstyle that requires many different skills. You want to practice good crosshair placement, typically at the doorway or just to the side of the doorway to account for somebody walking through. You'll need to practice flicks. Sometimes people just come from the side, completely random spots, and then you have to quickly adjust your aim and hit a pretty tough shot. Sometimes it'll land and sometimes you'll die, and you've just got to be patient. You usually take more time than you realize. Take your time and work on hitting those shots. Sometimes you can get in games where you just hit every single shot that you take. every single shot just goes in. It just works every time. In basketball, a ridiculous shot when you're on a hot streak is called a heat check, and sometimes you find yourself just trying to hit those dumb shots. It's all about practice and putting yourself in situations where hitting that shot will sometimes win you the game. So quickscoping requires practice, and if you really want to unlock the Rytec AMR, you'll have to get in there and pull those sights up quickly and just hit those shots. 3 times in 15 games sounds like a lot, but it's not too difficult once you do know how. Pull those sights up quickly, fire a shot, and work on hitting them more and more and be more consistent. Anyway, hopefully this did help you out on your way to unlocking this beastly new gun. It's absolutely hilarious and incredibly fun to use, especially with those explosive rounds. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this one or it did help you out at all, make sure you do leave a like and do subscribe if you are new around here. Of course, we're pushing towards 2,100 subscribers, so it would really help me out. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!